As of this week, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau now has a new head, but I can't really tell you who it is. It depends on who you talk to. It's a complicated situation. Director Richard Cordray, who was appointed by President Obama as the first person to run the agency, resigned effective last Friday. And then some complicated shenanigans began. President Donald Trump said that Office of Management and Budget Director Mick Mulvaney will be in charge in the interim until a formal director is appointed. But before leaving, Cordray, who just resigned, designated Deputy Director Leandra English to fill his spot until a permanent replacement is nominated and confirmed. And as of this morning, at least, both were saying they were functioning as the head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Now, what's interesting is a senator who's sort of an expert on this organization said that there really shouldn't be any complicated ideas of who's in charge of it. If we could bring this up, you're going to see a tweet here. The Dodd-Frank Act is clear. If there's a CFPB director vacancy, the deputy director becomes acting director. And we highlighted that section right there that says they serve as acting director in the absence or unavailability of the director. That director has been absent since Friday, and so Senator Warren there has a very good point. But it's weird, the timeline. If you bring up this next graphic, you're gonna see that they're having sort of a Game of Thrones style back and forth where Mulvaney comes in, says he's hard at work, has a photo of him with donuts, Dunkin' Donuts, which is a good choice, I like those.
Agreed.
Leandra English is still signing emails as the acting director. Then several hours later, Mulvaney tells them to not listen to her. And then there's a lawsuit to figure out who is actually in charge of this. And for reasons we're gonna get into, based on both an interview with Senator Warren, but also the results of an investigation by TYT Investigates, it really matters which of these two is in charge of that organization.
I believe the Lannisters are gonna come out on top.
You think so?
Yeah, because they always pay their debts, and this is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
They always reduce your debts.
If only it were so. Okay. So first of all, this is amazing. Second of all, the answer I think is relatively clear, and then how it gets applied is totally unclear. So the law that the Trump administration is using to justify Mulvaney as the acting director says that the president gets to fill vacancies at the executive branch. So far, that makes sense from the Trump point of view, unless there is a law saying how that vacancy would normally be filled. Now, in the case of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, there is a very clear law, Dodd-Frank law, that says if the director steps down, the deputy director will become the acting director. So
it's so simple that we just fit it in that little tweet.
That's right. So the law that Trump is relying on is not relevant, because that law says if there is no law saying who will be the director, then you can appoint it. But in this case, there is a law saying who will be the director. It's a Dodd-Frank legislation, which clearly says the deputy director will be the acting director. So I think a court could take about 30 seconds to decide this. Now, the application, though, is wildly complicated, because if you're sitting in the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau today as the two different kings have shown up, right? One's a Lannister and one is Dornish, or whatever, right? A Stark. Anyway, well, then you go to your own legal counsel, and the legal counsel has to decide who's actually the acting director. The problem is that the legal counsel is taking their memo from the Justice Department, and the guy who wrote the memo at the Justice Department saying that Mulvaney should be in charge is a guy who was just working for a payday lender that was assessed a fine by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
We've got a little bit more on that.
Right, so the Trump swamp has decided that the guy who was just getting paid by the people that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was investigating should decide that it should be Mulvaney, who would like to literally destroy the department altogether. He co-sponsored legislation to eliminate the department, to destroy it completely.
It sounds like what you're saying is that the king has just died, and now Cersei and the Starks want power. Who will the City Watch go with? Probably the payday lender that pays them, which I guess would be Littlefinger in this case.
Yes, I was going to say Littlefinger in the beginning.
But there you go. And so why is it so important to Trump and to payday lenders that they get Mulvaney instead of this other person? Well, there's good reasons for that. Now we've got some information coming out of an article released today by TYT Investigates, which is on the website. You can see it and it'll be linked in the description. Over the course of Mulvaney's 4 congressional runs from 2009 through 2016, Bank of America, the American Bankers Association, and the Credit Union Association gave those sums of money to Mulvaney. And so that's worrying, since this is an organization that's supposed to provide a check on the rampant power of banks. You know, the sort of crash that they instituted that was the cause of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau being developed in the first place. But more specifically here, in 2016, Grupo Salinas, which owns the largest payday loan chain in the country, Advance America, contributed $5,000 to Mulvaney's campaign. Last month, the CFPB introduced new strict regulations on payday loan practices, prompting Advance America's spokesman to call on Trump to intercede, which apparently he is going to do. In fact, as you pointed out, even directly with having a person who worked for them being the one who's sort of making the call on who gets to lead this group until a new permanent director is put into place.
So let's pause there to see how swampy that is. So reviewing, this payday lender gets a notice from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We are going to protect consumers from you. They are huge political donors. They turn to all the people that they have donated to, including the Trump administration and Mick Mulvaney, and they say, intercede on our behalf. Do not let them protect consumers from us.
Yeah.
And the Trump administration goes, well, no problem. I'll put the guy who you gave money to, Mulvaney, as the head of the group, and he wants to destroy the group, so he will destroy all regulations that might protect consumers from you, okay? So I'll put Mulvaney in charge, and then I'll put the guy who's making the decision as to who the acting director is as someone who just worked for you.
Yeah.
So you're paid off enough people inside the government that, don't worry, you will get to rob consumers just like you were planning to before this meddlesome group within the government meant to protect the citizens actually protects those citizens.
Yeah.
This is Swamp 101.
Yeah, and you had Trump over the weekend tweeting about how badly they needed reform at this organization, saying that it wasn't working right for banks. Every other part of the government works for the banks. This is the one part that's supposed to work for us. And in general terms, of course, it's done great things over the past 6 or so years in helping to relieve people of unnecessary and contested debts, recover money for organizations and banks that broke the law in various ways, lots of stuff like that. But specifically here, we're not just talking about banks, which love to take advantage of the people with the least power in this country. We're talking about payday lenders, which are the people that even banks don't want to be in the room with, that are specifically designed to steal every last cent from people who do not have a cent to have stolen from them. And that's the group that they are fighting after just a few extra regulations, a few protections for people like you. They're going to throw the Constitution in the trash so that they can get their way. Elizabeth Warren, by the way, was interviewed about some of this, said that Dodd-Frank is quite specific. It provides its own succession planning. There is no vacancy for President Trump to fill. And then had some thoughts on the 2 dueling heads of the organization, saying Leandra English has been at CFBP from the beginning, and keeping her would give the American people a chance to look at this agency one more time and see how hard it fights on behalf of consumers. So that's English. Well, what about Mulvaney? She said the agency will be headed by someone who fundamentally doesn't believe in its mission. This would change every calculation that every giant bank makes in the executive suite when deciding just how close to breaking the law they want to come. If the cop is pulled off the beat, then the profits from cheating people look far more attractive to the banking executives. And I love that TYT Investigates is looking into the donors and has that. I mean, that definitely cause for concern, a financial conflict of interest in the case of Mick Mulvaney. But as you alluded to earlier, in this particular case, I'm not sure that we necessarily need it quite as much, because this is a guy who has called this organization a sad, sick joke. Then today said that that's not fair, he was misquoted. What he actually said is, it's a joke in a sick, sad kind of way, which I'm not sure is actually better. And as you said, in 2015, co-sponsored legislation to literally eliminate it entirely, and said, quote, I don't like the fact that CFPB exists.
I think that's pretty clear, right?
It's pretty clear.
It's putting the bank robber in charge of the bank. And so, now it's funny because they've got $12 billion in reasons as to why to do it. And this is just what's happened in the past, let alone the future. It has so far, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has handled more than 1.2 million consumer complaints. So that's you guys saying, hey, I think my bank might have ripped me off. Now, what do they do next? They don't just take your word for it and then just throw money at you. No, they do an investigation, and a lot of those complaints sometimes are not merited, sometimes they're too hard to adjudicate, and et cetera. But some of them are legitimate. In fact, a lot of them are legitimate. And once they've gone through that, they then have to deal with the army of lawyers that the banks throw at them. And after all of that is through, they returned $12 billion to American citizens that the banks had clearly, indisputably, even their lawyers had said, oh, okay, let's pay this one back. Okay, $12 billion that they had taken from you and put into banking executives' pockets. Now, the people in New York and Washington and the elites, they wonder why regular Americans don't like bankers. They're always like, so surprised, why? In the cocktail circuit, I've got a lot of great banking friends. And the reality is, of course you need banks. And of course there are plenty of great people who work in financial institutions. But yes, there are also people who ripped off Americans to the tune of at least $12 billion, which this agency got back for the American people. So the banks hate this agency because they want to be able to rip you off. Not every bank, not every executive, not remotely, but a lot of them.
And also, and it's really important to point out, and you sort of did already, that they recovered the $12 billion. But think about what Elizabeth Warren said about the effect on behavior. $12 billion is what they still stole and the organization was able to get back. But what about the fact that that organization existing, its investigations existing, changing bank behavior so that they don't steal tons of other money? It might be far, far more than the $12 billion.
That's right. And Trump ran against the global financial elites. He mentioned them in one ad after another. Now, you want to talk about a sick, sad joke? That's unfortunately, not only the Trump campaign, but I gotta be honest with you, the joke is on the Trump voters. So he told you he was gonna drain the swamp and he was against the financial elites. Now he turns around and in his tweet he said, quote, financial institutions have been devastated. The poor financial institutions that he ran his whole campaign against. He's now heartbroken over how the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has actually regulated them and been effective cops, somewhat effective cops against them. He says the poor banks, the poor banks. Let me bring in Mick Mulvaney, who I know wants to destroy this on behalf of his banker donors, to go ahead and destroy it. And right now, technically, I can't make him the acting director. Who cares? What are we, in a democracy? I don't give a damn about the law. I'm gonna get another corrupt guy in the Department of Justice to do an opinion saying, sure we can. Now look, it's gonna go to the courts and you're gonna see we're gonna be proven right because the law is actually exceedingly clear.
Yeah.
Even if it went in front of Republican judges, I would be shocked if they weren't like, come on, man. It says right there, unless there is a law saying how the director is picked, and there is a law saying how the director is picked, you don't have any authority here. But by the time that they've done that, Mulvaney will have caused chaos at the agency, completely debilitated it, and let his banker friends run wild. And not the good bankers, but the ones that intend to do harm and that don't want any cops on the street. So that's who Trump is, that's who Mulvaney is. And right now, they're letting the bad bankers walk into the back of the bank with huge duffel bags going, oh, payday, baby. Time for us to go back to work robbing American taxpayers. And that's what they're gonna do. If you become a member of the Young Turks, you'll be saying,
you know, I'm like a smart person.
So do it right now, tytnetwork.com/join. Get the whole Young Turks show every day.